How's everybody doing? My name is J.R. Pond. I'm a doctoral student in the Doctor of Health Science and Exercise Leadership program at PennnWest University. Join everybody here together to take a look at the project that I'm doing for the doctoral program, looking at professional golf management player development program, and specifically the leadership council that we seek to put together to help motivate students in passing one of the most difficult components of becoming a PGA golf professional. The rationale behind this project really starts off with, again, those requirements to becoming a PGA member. The PGA has a qualifying level followed by 3 levels of education, including testing. But there's also a component called the playing ability test where we show our proficiency in playing the game of golf. The national pass rate for this at an individual PAT event is only about 20% of the participants. And the number of people that pass it the first time they attempt taking it is less than 6%. When we take a look at our previous pass rate as a university and as a program, we're around 25%, with some events going as high as 40% of participants passing in the event. What we've noticed is a drift off of that number quite a bit. The other thing that we noticed is once students did pass the playing ability test, there was a significant drop in their interaction with their fellow students as far as working on their games and continuing to improve in their own playing abilities. Some of the issues that we've run into in the current program as it sits are we've layered on additional requirements in a way to try and get people motivated to complete their player development program and to continue to work on their own abilities as a player. We've layered on additional requirements. We've had to increase the number of consequences that come with students falling short on those requirements. And we've introduced a really cool reward system. So we've kind of attacked it from both sides as far as increasing the number of consequences, the negative consequences, but also creating more positive opportunities for those students that are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Overall, though, we have not seen this function as a way to get the majority of students intrinsically motivated about working on their game, something that they should really want to do as future leaders in the golf industry and as people that have come into school to gain careers in golf, and for those that are passionate about the game as a whole. So we want to find out where's the disconnect and how are we starting to attack this in a way that shifts it from being a requirement, just another thing that they have to do, and starts to move it into something that they're really motivated. Make it part of the culture of the program. The main points that we're going to discuss and we're going to take a look at with this program and this project start off with how we're going to address player development as a whole. In the past, we did a point system, and if you completed certain tasks, you earned points, and you had to earn a certain number of points in order to be in good standing. What we're looking to do now is to take this 4 pillars of player development approach, which we'll take a look at here momentarily, but also how do we keep the students engaged and involved and make it part of the culture? And that's where this idea of the Player Development Leadership Council comes in. So let's start off by looking at the 4 pillars of player development. The 4 pillars of player development stem from the physical, the technical, the tactical, and the psychological, a very holistic approach to working with players and making sure that they're achieving their highest possible level of play. Starting off with physical, we look at the golf swing as a whole. The golf swing is pretty chaotic. It recruits a lot of muscles. It moves a lot of different body segments in a coordinated approach, producing a massive amount of torque and force in a very short window of time. So this physical pillar is designed to not only improve our force production and the ability for us to play at a higher level, but also to make sure that we're reducing that risk of injury that comes along with, especially at this age, you're hitting a lot of golf balls. So we start to see a lot of overuse injury. So how do we make sure we're mitigating the overuse, making sure the body can withstand the rigors of multiple days of play, lots of golf balls being hit in practice, to keep you healthy throughout the course of a round, throughout the course of a tournament, throughout the course of an entire season. The technical pillar is the one that falls into the golf professionals realm probably the most, and that is the actual biomechanics of the golf swing. How do we make it more efficient? How do we make it more repeatable? How do we develop all of those different pieces of the golf game that need to be there in order for somebody to play at the best possible level they can? So putting, chipping, pitching, full swing, long game, driving, making sure that we're developing the tools necessary for somebody to play their best possible golf. The tactical pillar is the first of our more abstract areas. This is where we get into course management, and we also start to move over into psychological, but not completely. But we want to start to make sure that we're maintaining steady state. We're starting to understand our own biological responses, whether it's a desired or undesired biological response, anxiety. But more so, we want to make sure that we understand our own patterns. What do our shot patterns look like? What are the distances we go through with each club? What are our distance under different situations, downwind, wet conditions, into the wind, flighted shots, and in different states? So when we are anxious or excited, how does that pattern start to shift? That way we can go and we can break a golf course down and have a planned, coordinated attack to how we're going to go after that round. The last is that psychological pillar, and that's where we actually start to really focus on managing state, managing expectations, making sure that we stay in the moment as much as possible, and understanding that sometimes confidence is not the most important thing to play your best golf. So again, there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to unpack, but that becomes one of those areas that we lean into. Golf is not a game of perfect, putting out of your mind, Zen golf, and then things like mindfulness meditation to manage state and to not allow things to dwell or to find ourselves looking too far into the future while we're trying to go through a round of golf. That opens us up to the next piece, the Player Development Leadership Council. The goal here is to take those students that have already successfully completed the playing ability test and to have them serve as mentors and facilitators for the students that are struggling with it. Their main objective is to do the oversight of the program. So to have a small group of students that they are in charge of and make sure that they're doing things like turning in their weekly scorecards, tracking their round data, facilitation as far as practice. So going through and building individualized programming to address shortfalls that we see in the assessments. When we look at the assessments, we're looking at physical assessments, just like we do with personal training. We are looking at golf-specific assessments using technologies like TrackMan or other launch monitors to better understand, again, those patterns that that individual player has. And how do we start to play to those strengths? So understanding where the strengths are in a player's game, playing to more of the strengths while doing what we can to avoid having to play with the weaker parts of the game, and also developing those weaker parts so that way when we get faced with those situations, we're a little more skillful. But again, how do we spend more of our round playing with our strengths, whether it's long game or putting or chipping or some combination of skills in order for us to shoot our best rounds. This provides some learning and coaching opportunities to these individuals that have already successfully passed the PAT that they don't currently have. These are people that tend to already be the high achievers that start to pull away because they're like, well, I've already accomplished that. There's not something else here to challenge me. There's nothing pushing me to see what I can do. Now it gives them an opportunity to continue developing as leaders. It gives them additional things that they can add to their resume to separate themselves in the job market. And it gives them some real skills in teaching and coaching. It gives them opportunities to really test their approaches to make sure that the way that they're going into their lessons is actually helping somebody get to the level that they want to be at. The goals of this project are pretty straightforward. We are looking to develop leaders. Once these students graduate, we want them to be leaders in the golf industry. They may start off in very traditional roles as assistant golf professionals, but they want to move on to become head golf professionals, directors of golf, general managers, those that are overseeing and running operations and properties. We want to help these individuals develop as leaders. The Leadership Council creates an opportunity outside of the classroom to make this a reality. We want to give those high achievers additional opportunities for growth. Right now, they kind of check off all the boxes, but there's not that additional challenge. There's not something there that allows us to push them out of their comfort zone to see just what they can accomplish. This creates that opportunity for them to become emerging leaders. Increasing the pass rate of the PAT. So from a player standpoint, we want to see that pass rate of the PAT get back up to where it once was and hopefully even beyond. We want to maintain the engagement of the students, whether it's somebody that is struggling with the PAT or somebody that has already successfully passed it. We want to keep them engaged and driving and pushing each other to see just how good they can get. And then again, because it comes from the students, it has the possibility of shifting the culture and making this the standard. One of my favorite quotes, Mike Tomlin, the standard is the standard. That's what we need it to be. And if it comes from the faculty and we have policies in place and we have consequences if you don't do it and we have rewards if you do it, that's fine and good, and that can help support it. But if the goal is to enhance the culture of the program, it has to be student run. This makes it student run. Now, those students are going to need some opportunities to be successful. And in order for them to truly be successful in this entire project, they need to have some resources. We've already started putting some of those resources together, and it's housed here in our professional golf management learning management shell. This allows every student of the program to access it, and we also have some areas that are specific to our leadership council to help them develop. So if we go underneath the content, we can get a little better look of what's going on here. We've already started working together to compile all of these things that will later be tested in actual practice with students when we're back on campus. But the leadership council that's been formed has already started to put content in here to help us assess the students, come up with programming, and help them improve in all four of the 4 pillars of player performance. We start off here with the player development objectives, where we get a nice little rundown of what we're trying to do. By the end of this player development program, you'll be able to describe the rationale for each of the 4 pillars of player performance, use physical assessments and round data to identify strengths and weaknesses in your game and the game of a client or student, demonstrate active engagement in player development by exceeding the required number of player development points for the semester, design practice plans to support your strengths while improving your areas of weakness, and assemble a practice journal that tracks patterns of progress over time. As we slide down below that, we get into the player development assessments, and we can dive into each one of these, but we do have a blank physical assessment sheet where they can have the student stand in front of them and go through, and we're looking for external shoulder rotation, we're looking for standing rotation test, we're looking for overhead squat assessment, we're looking for potential shortfalls in the physical performance of the individual that could be addressed by exercise to help them move better. We also have things like the Pell short game test. This is a test that I've used personally in the past that is a great way to almost assign a handicap. It applies points to an individual based on how many shots they hit within a certain proximity of the hole from different positions, including fairway bunkers, different distances away from the hole. But again, it assigns a handicap to that individual. So again, we know where their strengths are, and we can also identify areas of their game that are maybe a little bit lacking that we can improve, that are going to help them shoot lower scores. The last of the assessments that we have here is the TrackMan Combine. This is one of my favorites. So the TrackMan is a 3D launch monitor that we use that uses dual Doppler radar to actually track ball flight. We can use it indoor or outdoor, but the combine goes through and it's a set of 60 shots starting from 60 yards. So 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, and driver. There will be 6 shots taken with each one of those, but it'll be a series of 3 for the first yardage, and then the next all the way through, and then it goes back to the beginning, goes again, and it will assign a score overall, but it will also give you a breakdown for each one of those yardages, again, allowing us to identify shot patterns and also distances for each one of those, where they're most proficient distances. Now we're starting to be able to cut a golf course down and say, hey, 140 yards is a comfortable yardage, or 160 yards is a comfortable yardage. Let's start to purposely lay ourselves up into these areas that we know that you are more proficient. We get into the physical pillar. This is where we're starting to construct all of our physical fitness programming. The technical pillar, this is where we start to put together all of our golf instruction. So basically a drills catalog that we can go through and give to an individual based on, again, what we saw in their assessments. Here are the things that you're going to do to make that area of your game stronger, and again, helping you shoot lower scores. The last two, we get into the tactical pillar. This is going to be where we start off by having these drop boxes or these submission folders. So students starting in the 3rd week of the semester will be able to start playing a round a week where they're actually writing down all of their data, submitting it to the submission folders, where again, our student facilitators and leadership council can go in and make sure first of all, they're submitting all of their work, but also we can start to identify in a spreadsheet, again, where did things go wrong? Was it driving? Was it putting? Are we noticing that there's a shortfall with the wedges? Where are we going to get the most out of our practice? Then finally, we get into these last couple. We've got the psychological pillar. We've got the My Golf Spy mental fitness in golf. We've got some links that we're starting to compile here that are going to help students start to find ways that they can manage their state, remain in the moment, start to manage their expectations, especially. There's a lot of people that think that they should hit the ball really close to the hole all the time, anytime they have a wedge. And the truth is, from 100 yards, the best in the world are only hitting the green 80% of the time. But a lot of people don't understand that. So this is the content that we're starting to compile to help those individuals and help our players know that, hey, like, this is reality. It's okay to push yourself, but don't allow yourself to start beating yourself up because of what you're starting to see. And then again, we've really compiled stuff for the PDP Leadership Council. This is where we're starting to put some stretching and flexibility, mobility stuff together. We've got some practice pictures and videos. So this is an entire program as far as some assessments that they can use that assessment sheet and go in and watch the videos. And then we even have the answers to it. So once they've gone through and they've said, okay, I identified what I thought that I saw in each one of these assessments, we have a practice assessment answer sheet that has been evaluated by 2 NASM master trainers and myself, and gone through and put notes on all of these videos and static posture assessments in order to identify what's going on to help them hone their eye in this very important piece of this. That's the PDP Leadership Council and the updated player development plan in a nutshell. I'm really looking forward to going from what we've already constructed as a group and seeing where this starts to go when we can apply it and start to see some results based on what our players are really accomplishing. Thanks for joining me.